Thank you very much. It's a good playing, I think. It's always about a little goldfish. Do you know a story behind this piece? And maybe you can tell us, no?
Um, the only thing that I know is that Debussy he imagined the koi fishes from the lacquer of Japan, and that's the only thing I know.
Well, it's a little bit philosophical piece. You really need to know the story about it. If you read Debussy's letters when he wrote about this, that it's actually represented a goldfish, and the goldfish is actually himself. When it's up to the person to have a successful life or not, and if the goldfish is caught and it's dies, then there is no successful life. That was the idea behind it. It's just an interesting concept. Um, there are a couple of things to remember just about Debussy's style in general. His music, French music, impressionistic, was quite opposite of what we know in the Germanic tradition, because in Germany, a lot of music was like heavy and impressive, overly expressionistic. If you think about composers who lived during the time of Debussy, we immediately can name Gustav Mahler, for example, who was very composer concentrated on blending of harmonies, tormented feelings, a little bit continuing the tradition of Sturm und Drang, right? And revisiting this. With Debussy, it was completely different story. He wanted to give everyone a picture, but without the idea of much drama. That's the key. Whenever you play his music, in my personal opinion, he very, very rarely has two forte.
Hmm.
He can have a two forte, but it's a little bit more or less questionable. It's more like a sudden outbursts of energy and immediately followed by total, complete serenity and calmness, I would say. So when you start this piece, you have to keep in mind that it's a shape. It's his music is all about shapes and what you do with your hands as shape. That's why the palitra, the arsenal of your presentation should go much beyond the fingers, and you should use basically all parts of your hand, the forearm, shoulder, back, and even it should come balance all the way from your feet, right? So it's a constantly energetic motion, but at the same time, extremely, extremely light and I would say vibrating. And now when I told you this word vibrating is the words that I would define the beginning of this piece with. So when you start playing this section, you basically hit your F sharp, and then the rest of these notes, it's a tremolo. It's a written out tremolo. So the idea behind it is not so much to do with articulation. You raise fingers just as much as needed, so it doesn't sound mushy. But uh, everything else, the motion itself is done by a flick of a wrist, gentle, not too much, because then it will turn into timpani, and we don't want this to happen. Also, what I really would like to hear, and many pianists unfortunately fail to show this, is a major minor. Because many people hear this and they realize, oh, this is something interesting. He did not write a natural because he doesn't want to make a nightmare for his editor. He wrote G double sharp, which is the respelling in harmonic respelling of A natural, but it should be some kind of blending of the harmonies at the same time very clear and light. And then this starts line, but at the same time he writes marqué, marked. The question is how much is marked because it's also piano, ta-da, just some uh, close to the harpsichord sound, ta-da, and much more pleasant and charming in its character. You a little bit played it slightly bit too straightforward. You need to give it some sound straight when the melody starts. Could we start beginning, please? Yes, yes, good. Sorry to stop you. Everything is good except it's a little bit too loud. Make it whisper. After all, it's the two piano. Yes, clear notes, but at the same time, your motion should come somewhere from here, this part of the hand, and here, this part. This is where it comes from, rather, and then it's transmitted to the tips of the fingers, right? But this part, whatever connects, must remain very, very lax. Maybe clearness is really the third importance. The most important is the shape and the color of this major minor. I'm sorry to stop you again. Beginning was much better. Can you sort of arrive to this chord slightly bit more sweet? Then second time softer. And suddenly this comes, right? This is more surprising. Maybe from the second page?
Pardon?
Maybe can we do it from the second, actually from the beginning of melody? Yes, yes. And then comes this passage when you do this. You know, very often you play passages as an ascend in this piece, and at the same time, what you don't want to do, make your hand stay on the keys. The wrist is a key factor here. Here the difference if I make it go up a bit. See? It already gives it some lift, the elevation. At the same time, this note, the bass here, I would stand still. Now, here it says diminuendo molta, but it does not mean like this passage you necessarily have to play straight in tempo. He wrote the first few notes staccato, use it. And then when it starts to go the same way, you pick up the speed. Why is it so important? Because if you play, you see the piano is destroyed. It should be some play again with an overtone series, right? One pedal, like an impressionistic painting. You put just several colors and you blend them together. So it really depends how you treat this. If you play this, it stays down, but E blends with this F sharp, and it's much more interesting. Wrist goes up as it plays. So can we do straight from here, measure 7? Okay, please make notes. Yeah, Alisa, sorry to stop you again. Here, a very important is finger articulation. And I want to hear six notes. And not slower. Here, he actually did not try to slow down. And then very important is this note because now the melody starts to descend and it's long. It's 4 measures. It's piano, but we want to emphasize it somehow. What do? Wrist. For 1 second, note goes higher. Now, this is the similar note, but it's a different. This is more like the nota, so your finger stays on it. Here. And then this part. Can we try this place? Okay, a couple of things here. First of all, you play this very, very rhythmic, like metric. And it's not really much going on. Harmonically, left hand goes. Okay, he really decorates this dominant chord. But right hand stays also the same. Why don't you play it slightly bit more rubato? And then you arrive here, because otherwise it's too redundant. Can you do? Yeah, and it's a little bit harmonically not justified. I will give you a short secret here. Do not start right hand ta 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 until left hand finishes playing. Even though rhythmically it would be incorrect, acoustically it will be better because then you will hear all this passage fully. What I mean is this. Now you hear it fully, right? And especially here, the last one. Here forte, so you can actually bring out much more. But before wait for left hand to finish. Can we do it? Yes, yes. And then fourth, do not lose energy right away because it seems like already here. No, no, no. And then here, right? Because you were going for this fourth, it's probably the first one in the piece, and suddenly it becomes kind of weak. Stay there longer, enjoy it more. This is one, and then here I suggest you to do quite an original thing. Why don't you change hands? Of course, you can do it later, but it sounds much more effective and more convenient if you play the trill with your right hand, and then the left hand switch them. This would sound much better. That's why I actually take time here. Different sound. Can you try? Yes, and then here one purity new, more piano, and then you slow down, and then last F on this page, slightly bit late, slightly bit late, and then comes revisit. Now, when you return to the main theme of the piece, you suddenly realize that it becomes much more convenient to start it right away because your hands now switched in a normal position. If you play this fourth line the way you did before, so now left hand has to fly all the way here. And if you do this change, it's already there and ready to play, so you don't have to do a pause. That's much better, and I think acoustically it's justified. Now, how can you bring more variety with the wrist? Well, let's take these lonely notes. If I play it like this, you see the sound stays in the keyboard if I just make my hand stay. On the other hand, if I play the note and make my hand fly soft, and then I can play this many ways. I can play like this. I can play very dry on the pedal, or I can play it soft. Tenuta with staccato legato, it needs some kind of ingredients. You see, uh, when we eat sushi, it's much more fun. Well, there's a lot of nice ingredients, but it's much more fun with sauce and maybe some wasabi and ginger, right? All these things. It makes it quite more pleasant. And also here, because if you use the same touch, it sort of becomes one picture. And this music is based on a touch and take sudden takeoffs, what you can do. So I talked about takeoffs. Now let's talk about things, how you can play straight into the keyboard, right? Because sometimes people take time and they play and they press. And very often in this piece, you have to actually play straight away, so let your hands land on the keyboard. So you see, like you want to rinse the water off your hands. That's an idea. sudden tail, and then you start. And then at the end, if you notice this trill, what I did, a little one. But why it's so important? Because the fish, the golden fish, it has a tail. And before going to down into the depths, it shows sometimes the tail and it's sparkling on the sun. So this concept is critically important to end the trill slightly bit like this. It's a color. Okay, so next one is the, yeah, why don't you play next Voyageur when you return to the main theme? More charming and with love. So kind of try to pat it more like this touch rather than ta 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 legato. Okay, nice, nice. But can you make it up? What you can also do is you can sustain slightly the top voice while you let down the bottom voice, right? Because nobody told you that they necessarily have to be the same. Also, if you don't want to sustain, staccato can also be different. You can play, which is obviously incorrect, which is better, and then heavier staccato, and then slightly bit feel this harmony more. And then second time, echo. Can you try? Yes, yes, yes. Well, now we go to E flat major, such a distant tonality, very distant from F sharp. Nothing happens. You need to really show this. More mysterious, I would say. You see, you flick your wrist, but the fingers, tips of the fingers, they're like electric receptacles. Very, very sensitive. And then second E flat, much more. You start your melody in here. And then you come here, please. Yes, yes. I'm sorry. I think you have actually, if we count the rhythm, your rhythm is slightly bit too fast. It's wrong. Two, three, and one, two, three. So last two notes not so fast. And then you see the sound, the quality of sound, Lisa, it also depends a lot on your upper body. If you're able to relax it more and just sort of let it go sound. I have a feeling it's slightly bit tense, It comes from your shoulders and also from your spine. Relax it when you play Debussy. It always should be played with a great sense of enjoyment. That's the key. Try the same page. Let your fingers almost like flat. Yes, and here you can also do, you can blend these passages completely, or you can play them more clear. It depends really what kind of color you want to give. More like portamento. Not so, that's too much. And then maybe show a little bit of this last note. Remember, we talked about the tail of the fish. So this last note that he marks the note is this image actually. Answer. And then left hand. You know, if you want to get the best, absolutely the best out of this passage, how to perform it technically? Well, this is like your laboratory, how you should think about it. Prepare all 8 fingers on these passages and then sort of raise them as much as needed to play this clear, this passage. The rest is directed by wrist. They should stay all prepared above the notes. And then you give it some shape. So it can be slightly more frantic or slightly bit less, and then you can raise your wrist or not. You see, it changes the sound slightly bit. Yes, yes, not so much, not so loud these notes. Top chords, they're like water where it flies. You don't really try to shape water of the ocean because it's shapeless. It's impossible to shape. So it's really like a waves, undulating waves. What you can and you should shape is the bottom note. Piano, different colors. Yes, yes. I like very much how you play this phrase here. It's how it should be. It's slightly bit jazzy, so you can even pursue this even more playful. It's like a child that is so much captivated in the game that it cannot stop from playing the ball. It's more and more, right? So you can go more into this. And then over here, this passage, the G major, you probably overtaking here with the right hand, right?
Yes.
Wait for this passage to arrive to the D and then you take off the pedal because this whole shape and then these 2 notes are kind of off. It's a color also because you change the pedal straight at the note and this passage is lost this way. Can you try? Here, yeah. Yes, yes, okay. Now, talking about landing, which I mentioned to you. from the short distance here, slightly bit from longer, and more, because distance defines this crescendo. You make your hands sort of fall down on the keys. Can you try? Yes, yes, yes. And then can I hear the much better? Can I hear these two chords more sweet, like you eat honey? Especially the D flat. Your hands should go sideways by shoulders. That's how you achieve that. Yes, and then again on the last note here, finger off. Because if it's off, it will automatically bring out the C sharp. It's just a different color. Here it stays down, you see? And here it outstands up. The variety. You cannot play these passages all the same way because he writes maybe how much? I would say two, three, at least 2 pages of it. So he wants to you to say, Alisa, can you experiment with sound? How many sounds can you invent? One, two, 5, 10, maybe 50. If you're 50, you play like Horowitz. So you should really think about this. And then to be honest, I didn't quite understand what was the point of playing this passage, the next one. And then you sort of play this. Yes, he writes slow down, but then these last notes were completely out of shape. And then they have to go here. Right, right to here, right? Not so much slow down because it loses the shape, but go straight into this. Can you try? At least I would play it all on one pedal actually. I would play this all on one pedal and not so much slow down. All this. You don't need to take it off, but what you need to do is much softer. Because what was bothering you is, oh, I play this too loud, I cannot blend it. It will be too loud, too dirty pedal if you keep your volume too loud. Because it's P, it's piano, slide crescendo, and then diminuendo. Do that. Light. Why wait here? No, 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 straight. Da da, passage da 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 da. Don't wait before E sharp. Okay, okay, Alisa. Good, good. This I place I like, except I would actually start this more like you trying things out first. Not so straightforward in tempo, because it's unexpected. More charming. And then straightforward, you make it at shape. And then there is a slight detail. I'm not sure if you do it, but if you do it, it's very good. Take last three chords, all of them into right hand. Why it's so important? Because then you can prepare your passage, your A, yeah, it's A, into the left. You understand or not quite? Yeah.
I
Try
understand.
this. Even softer, three piano. So this note should like vanish. No. Actually, this was beautiful, but then when you make this down, this part, C sharp, I hope you play with the right hand, right? Yes, and then here, very rhythmic, at the same time softer. There is no like crescendo. You should prepare for yourself for two piano. If you just make a crescendo all the way down, then where is your diminuendo? I think it should start much sooner, just logically. You reach this part, see, and I can all play it on one pedal. Hear how these harmonies blend. I would play it even almost like two measure pedal. Try this. Yeah. Can you rhythmically sort of extrapolate some motifs? And then from the top voice, I wouldn't bring out all of this. I would just bring out this part, right? And then when you go here, next place, make it sound more like a woodwind instrument, close valves of a reed instrument. Can you try this section? Yeah, not too much crescendo. Be careful. You really nullifying what he wrote. It's a two piano crescendo back. Not even to mezzo piano. Much softer. Yes, and then diminuendo here. Really soft right hand. You know, I actually do very inconvenient and crazy thing here. I don't play right hand above, but I play left hand above to get this sound. Then I change the sound. If you didn't try, don't try now. It's much more complex. But if you try it later, it will change this sound completely. Okay, now diminuendo here and then piano. Yes, yes, okay, I agree with you. A little bit more emphasize the bass, but who wrote that you must speed up here? Is there any accelerando here?
No.
No, absolutely not. You will actually play very fast notes later, and they will never be clear if you speed up here. You have to sometimes think very strategically. He only writes you molto pianissimo for right hand, and then once you do these shapes, the top corresponds with the next note in the left hand. So make sure D sharp comes in very clearly. Can you try? Not too fast. Not too fast. Dum, 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 dum. Yes, yes, okay, okay. Here it's a little bit like I don't know, a scared flock of birds flies into the sky. That's an idea, and technically it should be performed martellato. So you're giving to yourself too much space between these. So it's almost like not clear. It needs to be. It's a little bit like this, right? Same weight for each hand. And then top notes, of course, they're from above. They're being played. You barely lift your hands. You need to lift all of them. And here, finally, two forte, one of a kind. So it's more like a Rachmaninoff, much more uh, wide, I would say, because it goes through many registers, but at the same time, I think it's not so straight forte. It's forte that is subdivided between different registers. It's more like blending registers. Can you try this section? Yeah, I just noticed, Alisa, why these eight notes, which are the same, they suddenly slower. Rubato doesn't mean slow, it's not retenuta. It's a back and forth, uneven touch, right? So it's more like but more or less it should have a resemblance of the previous rhythmic plays, right? Do you know what does it mean, rubare in Italian?
No.
To steal something. You steal the tempo and then you give it back. That's an idea. So you give the tempo. This idea. Okay. How about when you play it second time? Calm down here, calm down. Here it's a place where you need to come down. And then another very interesting marking, he has arache, tear off basically. It's a little bit more aggressive. And then relax. Can you do this? Yes, this G sharp I would emphasize much more. Play it from above. Sort of like drop your hand by wrist to this note. Can you do it? Yes. Do you use in pedal when you start this last section or without pedal?
Um, from measure 94.
Yes.
Um, I start without pedal, then I start pressing the pedal little by little.
Yes, yes. So you should actually delay pedal as much as possible because it will be much better. And I would say you need to hear more like of this unevenness, less note, more think of it as the upbeat to the down. Like it's a chain of several things going into another. Like not like the first note important, but they're all important. So when there is no like rhythmic structure in the similar notes, then they start to sound very even and it's super effective. My take on the pedal would be really okay, where it starts to say più crescendo, only there, and maybe even at the forte, then you would use it. And then very important last basis because if you won't play the F sharp properly deep, I mean this part, yeah. They won't blend correctly, so make sure you played it clearly. And finally, last stroke of Debussy, make it sparkle. It's a fishtail with a sunset. So everybody plays it. No sense to me. More. Even you can play it soft, but make sure you can sort of drop it. It's much more effective. Why don't we play Coda one last time and call it a day? Very good. I think these ideas should help you somehow with this piece and maybe in your piano in general. And I thank you for playing today. You're quite talented. I think you should pursue more Debussy. And if you need any advice from me, let me know and we can always schedule more sessions together. Thank you very much.